and welcome Mindsetters to this session of Grade 10 Learn Extra. Hope you guys are ready. You got your pens and pads out and you're going to make some notes. I'm Ty and I'm here with Claire, who's going to be taking us for today's session. So Claire, what are we doing today?
Doing grade 10 today. We're doing plans and models, Ty.
All right, all right.
Looking at some volume stuff, some surface area, and going from there.
Okay, no problem. So Claire,
Cool.
while you make your way across
Cool,
the
thanks,
board, I'm
Ty.
going to tell the Mindsetters, by now you know the drill, yo. Okay, that was a horrible hip-hop thing. But anyway, you guys need to make sure you get on the page, get chatting, let me know what you guys are thinking. If you're lost anyway, if you need help, post. Let me know what you guys are thinking. Because if you don't post, I can't help you. And Claire can't help you either because we can't read your mind through the TV. So make sure you get on the Facebook page, let us know what you guys are thinking, www.facebook.com/learn extra. But on that note, this is where I hand over to Claire, who's going to continue the show. Claire, take it away.
Cool. Thanks, Ty. All right, guys, before we start, I know that we've been looking at how many people have been looking at our Facebook page. And last week we had 16,851 people. Ty, how are we doing this week?
We're actually doing really well. I'm excited. We've got 17,410 likes on the page. And on that note, I want to tell the Mindsetters, you know what? That's awesome. But if you want to see me dance and maybe take off my hat, make sure you get us to 20,000. So tell your friend to tell a friend to tell more friends to tell other friends to get on the page. But back to you, Claire.
Cool. So let's quickly just to kind of warm things up, kind of get into the groove of things. Let's find out how many more people have liked our page this week, right? So we're going to take last week, we're going to subtract it from our current value, which is 17,410. So grab your calculators quickly. So 17,410 minus last week, which was 16,851. Okay, so we're looking at another 559 people, okay, interested in our page, which is awesome, absolutely brilliant. Okay, right. So now that we've warmed up and we're ready and we're going to get started, okay, we're going to jump straight into our questions. All right, I said today that we're looking at plans and models, so looking at floor plans. We're going to be doing a little bit of area calculations, some volume calculations. So we're going to start off with something quite straightforward, and then we'll go from there. So question number 1. All right, so it says, study the floor plan of Jill's kitchen below. Notice that it's not drawn to scale, and answer the questions that follow. So question 1 says, A, calculate the area of the floor. Now, there are many different ways that we can do this. Okay, so I'm going to obviously try and go the most direct route possible, but if you've got another way and you want to see whether it's right or not, why not just mention it on the Facebook page? I'll kind of touch on 2 different methods that probably you guys would use, but as I said, we're going to try and first with the most direct route, because then obviously you're going to waste less time if you go there straight away. So, right. Okay, if we have a look at this floor, this is a bit of an irregular shape. It's not a straightforward rectangle, so we can't just simply say that it's going to be length times breadth. So the majority of you might want to try and divide this up into 3 different sections or 2 different sections. It depends on how you want to do it. My way of doing it is simply to look at the entire picture as a whole, okay, and say, well, other than this extra little part over here that seems to be missing, I'm going to be working out the big rectangle and then getting rid of that little extra piece that doesn't seem to be there. Okay, so my method, taking length times breadth of the big rectangle, working out the area of the small rectangle, and if we subtract the 2, then obviously that will leave us the area of the floor. All right, so calculating area of a rectangle. Okay, you should know by now that this is going to be area is equal to length times breadth. Okay, and then we're going to minus that other length times breadth. So in other words, this is the big rectangle, and that's the small rectangle. Okay, so looking at the dimensions of the floor. All right, we have the length as being 7 meters. We've got our width or our breadth as being 5 meters. So let's fill that in. So 7 meters by 5 meters. And then that little area that doesn't seem to be there, in other words, obviously it's just a different shape that they've used for their floor, has dimensions of 2.65 meters by 1.55 meters. Right? So subtracting that area, so 2.65 multiplied by 1.55. All right, so grabbing your calculators. Okay, I'll give you a minute. Grab those calculators. You can't do this without your calculator. Okay, so don't wait for me to write down the answer. Make sure that you've got your calculators with you and you're punching in the numbers at the same time as I am so that you can check whether or not you're getting the correct answer. Okay, so 7.7 multiplied by 5. Right, that's going to give us an answer of 35. Okay. Hey. Right, let's work out the area of the smaller rectangle. So 2.65 multiplied by 1.55. So 2.65 multiplied by 1.55. Right? Okay, remember that if it gives you an answer as a fraction, just remember that you need to press your SD button in order to change it into a decimal number. So the answer there, 4.1075 square meters. So 4.1075. Hey. All right. Okay, once again, grabbing your calculators. So remember what we're doing? Big rectangle minus a small rectangle is going to give us the floor area that we're working with. So 35 minus 4.1075. Okay, you can say 35 minus that, or you can use your answer button on your calculator also as a little bit of a shortcut. So what it'll do there is it'll pick up the answer, the last answer that you just calculated, and it'll use that in the calculation that you're doing now. So 35 minus the answer that I just calculated, and it gives me my answer as 30.8925. Right, now when we're working with decimal places, if they don't tell you what you need to do, make sure that you're rounding off to 2 decimal places. So even when you're matric final, when you eventually get there, in the very first instructions of your paper, it always indicates to you that where necessary, round off to 2 decimal places. So we're going to do that. Okay, so rounding off to 2 decimal places, that 2 is obviously going to leave that 9 the way it is. So the answer is going to be 30.89. Okay. Units, very important when we're dealing with maths literacy because obviously we're talking about a story. So it's not like maths where we're just number crunching. Here there's a story behind it, which obviously we have to have some form of unit involved. So obviously we're calculating area, which means it's going to be some form of square measurements. And because we were dealing with 7 meters and 5 meters, our unit will be square meters, okay, or meters squared. All right. Okay, just touching on one of the other methods that you could have done. So let's say you didn't like my method and you wanted to try and split the shape into different rectangles and add them all together, you can do that. So you might want to have drawn and said, I'm going to first work out the area of A, maybe split it down there, work out the area of B, and work out the area of C. And then once you've worked out all 3 areas, adding those 3 together, you should get the same answer. So there isn't one method of doing this. There is a few methods that you can obviously try. So if you've got a slightly different method, provided that you're still getting the answer of 30.89 square meters, then I'm pretty sure that there's nothing wrong with what you're doing. Okay. Right, jumping on to the next question. Okay, so we're looking at different types of ways that you can obviously cover your floor. So this person, Jill, says that she decides that she wants to replace the linoleum flooring in her kitchen with tiles. Okay, so instead of using the flooring that's currently there, they now decide that they want to re-tile the floor. The tiles that he has chosen are squares measuring 40 centimeters by 40 centimeters. So if you can visualize what that looks like, okay, your standard ruler length is 30 centimeters, so about 10 centimeters longer than that. That's roughly the size of the tile that they're going to use in order to tile the kitchen floor. Okay, question 1, calculate the area of each tile in meters squared. Okay, so bit of a multi-step question because the dimensions that are given to you in centimeters, and you obviously need to work out the area of it in meters squared, okay, or square meters. So the easiest way to do that, we need to convert those 40 centimeters into meters. Okay, so now you need to ask yourself a question. How many centimeters are there in a meter? Okay. Now, if you know a method to work with, or then obviously you can use that. The way I remember it is I think to myself, all right, I know that 3 rulers, those standard rulers, and a little bit more equals 1 meter. So 3 rulers is 30, 60, 90, plus another 10 centimeters gives me 100. So 100 centimeters equals 1 meter. So if I want to convert centimeters into meters, I have to divide each of those measurements by 100. Okay, so first thing, that's what we're going to do. We're going to take the 40, we're going to divide it by 100, and that's going to give us an answer of 0.4 meters. All right, so the length and the breadth of these tiles, because they're squares, they're 0.4 by 0.4 meters. Calculating your area. Still working with length times breadth. Okay, you can look at another method that they call length squared. That's also okay, because obviously the length and the breadth are the same. Length times breadth, 0.4 multiplied by 0.4. Okay, grab your calculators if you're not sure. If you can't do it in your head, make sure you use your calculator. Right? So 0.4 multiplied by 0.4, and that gives us an answer of 0.16 square meters. All right, nice and straightforward. Okay, let's have a look at the next question. All right, the next question says to us to calculate the number of tiles Jill will need to tile his kitchen based on your area calculations. So what they're asking us to do here is we know the total area of the floor that we're dealing with. We know the area of the tiles that we want to use. So we want to know how many tiles am I going to need in order to cover my kitchen floor. Okay, now there's two different methods, and we're going to look at the second one in a minute. But if I say to you the minimum number, I'm saying chances are the minimum number means we'll probably have to use, so if they don't fit perfectly, we might have to cut some of the tiles, okay, in order to kind of match up the areas that are not going to fit perfectly. So when they say minimum number of tiles, what they're simply saying is how many of your tiles are going to fit into your floor. So working out how many you're taking your area of your tiles and dividing it into your floor area. So going back to our previous page, we worked out that the area of the floor was 30.89 square meters. I want to know how many 0.16 meters squared there are in 30.89. Okay, so 30.89 is our area of our floor, so let's write that down. Okay, right, and I want to know how many 0.16s will go into that value. Okay, so grab your calculators again. Thank goodness for calculators. Right? So 30.89 dividing by 0.16. Okay? That's going to give us an answer of 193,0625. Okay, now we need to talk. Okay, we're talking about tiles, all right? So when you think about it, 193.0625 tiles, that doesn't really make much sense. Okay, we don't get 0.0625 of a tile. So when you're asked that question, you need to think to yourself, am I rounding up or am I rounding down? Okay, now normal maths rules will tell you if you're rounding off to the nearest whole number, that 0 is not going to change that 3. It's going to leave it at 193. Okay, but if you have 193 tiles, you're not going to have enough in order to cover the entire area. Okay, because there's going to be a gap somewhere. All right. So even though maths tells you that you need to be rounding that down, maths lit tells you I need an extra tile here to make sure that I cover the entire area. All right. So in that situation, instead of saying 193 tiles, we're going to round that up to 194 tiles. Okay. Good. All right, so that was the one method, taking the area of the floor, taking the area of the tile, and dividing the two. In other words, how many tiles will fit into my floor, all right? The next question says that when Jill speaks to the tiler, okay, so the person who's going to come and do the tiling, he uses the length and the breadth of the tile and the kitchen to estimate the number of tiles he needs. Explain why this is more practical calculation, right? So let's just go through that again. So once again, he said he's using the length, okay, and the breadth of the tile and the kitchen. Okay, so we need to be looking at those when we go back and have a look at our diagram. We need to go back and have a look at what the length and the breadth of those are. Okay, so let's just start off nice and straightforward. Okay, so difficult to work with because this is not a straightforward rectangle, but you can still do it even if you're just estimating. So what they're asking us here is, instead of working out the area of the one and working out the area of the other and dividing the two, so that was the one method that we dealt with, what they're saying now is the tiler is saying how many of my tiles will fit lengthways and how many of my tiles will fit into the width, okay? And if I know that, I can then obviously then calculate how many tiles in total I'm going to need, okay? So maybe if you're making some notes or you're drawing a little bit of a sketch, maybe just draw yourself one tile in so you get an idea of what we're looking at. So we're saying, if I have a tile, and we know that this is 0.4 by 0.4, I want to know how many of those are going to be fitting into the length of my floor. And in the same breath, I also want to know how many of them will fit in that direction. And if I can cover the entire floor, then I can work out how many tiles I'm going to need. Right. So we're going to start off, I'll do the length with you, and then I think you need to do the breadth by yourself. Okay? Extend yourself just a little bit. All right. So length of my floor is 7 meters. I want to find out how many tiles will fit in that way. So in other words, if the length of my floor is 7 meters and the length of my tile is 0.4 meters, how many 0.4s will fit into my length? So once again, on your calculator, if you work out 7 divided by 0.4, okay, that's going to give us an answer of 17.5. Okay, think about it. 17.5 tiles. Yes, we can cut tiles, but generally speaking, if the tile is going to be buying the tiles, he's going to buy boxes and they're going to be complete tiles, and then he'll cut them when he needs to. So 17.5 tiles means I need to make provision for 18 tiles that are going to then fit across the length of my floor. So in this case, I'm going to round that up to 18 tiles. Okay. All right, so that was saying across the length of the floor, we're going to work with 18 tiles. Okay, so 18 tiles across the bottom. Okay, we're going to take a break in a minute. What I'd like you to do in that break is think about doing the exact same thing now if we're working with the breadth of the floor. In other words, we're now working with the 5 meters. How many of these tiles will now fit into the breadth? So exactly the same method as what we used to work out the length. Let's see if you can work out how many will fit into the breadth of the floor. Sa?
Well, thank you for actually telling the mindsetters about that, because we actually might need to take a break just now. I'm thinking, mindsetters, all I'm going to say is that, listen, you need to get on the page, get chatting to me. Right now, my page is malfunctioning on me because Facebook decided to say, hey, we decided to take a break today. But anyway, mindsetters, we're going to fix that. And while we're fixing that, you need to take a quick break, go grab something to drink, go grab something to eat. But we'll see you soon after this break.